Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. It's November. Things are getting serious. We're talking playoff Final Fours, and we have we're starting an unbelievable run to kind of get us through the end of the regular season. And this is the best time of the year until we get to bowl games, and then but this right now, this is the best time of the year, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't bowl season the most wonderful time of the year? But
I think that's trademarked. We can refer to this one as, I don't know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. After coming off of last week and heading into the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks even that we're heading into, across the board, the schedule is backloaded, and it's almost like we set it up this way for the playoff committee. I know that's not the way it's done, but that's just kind of the way this year has set up. We're looking for a mad dash to the finish.
Yep.
And which is what making doing playoff ranking so much fun right now, because a lot of this stuff is going to get sorted out on the field for us.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But up until this, because it lays out pretty nicely for all those things to kind of be decided, except for maybe a couple of things. But which is what makes doing playoff rankings right now so much fun, because it's all speculation.
It's total speculation. I think we let you go first last week. I'm going to go first this week.
Okay.
Also because you may not have your fourth team pick yet.
I'm flipping coins while you're talking.
Might have mentioned that to me before we started the show. My top two are remaining the same: Clemson and Ohio State. I am perhaps unique in keeping Ohio State in that position, even after they fell out of the number one spot in the coaches poll, or in the AP poll. But I'm still happy with the progress. JT Barrett apparently is having a great week of practice, and as I mentioned before, the defense continues to improve week over week, and that's going to be a helpful thing. Number three, probably shouldn't be a surprise, would be Alabama. That was an impressive win over a pretty good LSU team that even got some passing offense against the Tide. But
yeah.
Bama handled that challenge handily. And then my number four team, I'm gonna there.
Hi, Mr. Charlie.
This is our new cat. His name is Charlie. He has no idea what's going on. I keep telling him about the internet, and he's like, huh? My number four team is Iowa. And I'm looking at looking at a one-loss Notre Dame team. Okay, I'm looking at a Baylor team that hasn't played anybody yet. That is about to change, not only this week but for the rest of the season.
Right.
I think actually for me the Big 12 is sort of the variable. Because there's almost a round robin among the top four teams in the conference, and depending on how that shakes out, certainly if Baylor or Oklahoma State were to win out, I think that's an automatic bid into the Final Four, depending on which spot. And could Oklahoma or TCU, depending on how things work out, that's possible, but we'll see. So for this week anyway, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, Iowa. Boom. Who you got?
Okay. I like Clemson one. Like I said last week, I put LSU at number one with great trepidation, and that trepidation was definitely a real thing.
Still not a bad pick, but
yeah, it's a super impressive win by Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand why the committee put them at 2 right now. However, I'm going to stick with your line of thought. I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to the unbeaten.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like Clemson 1, Ohio State 2, Alabama 3. To me, it's almost a tie at 2 between Ohio State and Alabama, because Ohio State has the undefeated resume, looking good, playing well down the stretch. Alabama's probably got better wins at this point in the season.
Yeah.
So, but to be honest, 2 and 3 play each other anyway. So I'm okay either way with Bama 2 or Ohio State 2, as long as the other one is 3. I'm okay. And you're right. Before the show, I was trying to figure out who my 4 team was, and the reason why I like your Iowa pick. I was actually thinking Iowa pretty heavily. Because the 3 teams that are in it for me are Iowa, Baylor, and Oklahoma State. Those are the 3 that I'm kind of looking at. Notre Dame, I don't know. They just don't have that signature win on their resume that would make me put a one-loss team ahead of those 3 unbeatens. Is Notre Dame's resume any more impressive than Iowa's or Oklahoma State's at this point? I don't think so. And so I'm a little bit surprised as to the committee putting Notre Dame at 4. I think at this point, if you're looking at those 3 teams, the team that has the strongest win at this point in the season, I'm going to argue, is Oklahoma State. The win over TCU last week is probably the best win out of those 3 teams right now. So I like your Iowa pick, but I think I'm going to go Oklahoma State for the time being.
Okay.
Now, again, that changes with Big 12's a mess. With everything being backloaded, it's going to sort itself out. But I think for this week, I think that TCU win for me would put Oklahoma State in the top 4.
Okay. Those are both solid Final Fours, and as we both said, there's still a lot of stuff, especially in the Big 12, to get worked out, and we're going to touch on this because that sort of starts this week. Before we get to our 3 formal picks, we did, again, Carla mentioned this, and she's absolutely correct. The Group 05. This is kind of the game of the year for those guys. This is Memphis at Houston. God, if you're if you're not super excited about Oregon at Stanford, maybe because they started at the same time, it's an evening game. This game is going to be a lot of fun. And I have a soft spot for Houston's new head coach, Tom Herman.
I thought you might.
Yeah, it's the guy who made Urban Meyer's offense go last year. I'm going to say go Cougars. Sure, I'm going to pick Houston. They're a 7-point favorite in the game. So, did you have a thought there, real quick?
If you like offense, this is a game to watch.
That's the
had this one on the flip because this is going to be an up and down game, a whole lot of scoring. It would have been an even bigger game, if that's even possible, had Memphis actually beaten Navy last week. That's a great win by that Navy team.
Right.
But had Memphis entered this game also undefeated, I think this game would have been getting a lot more attention, and you might even argue that might have been where game day went. But I think that Navy loss kind of changed some things, but yeah, definitely. And Houston's favored in the game. I would lean Houston, although it would, both those teams are outstanding. It wouldn't stun me if either one of those teams won. But yeah, keep this one. It's an under the radar game, but keep this one on the thumb flip on Saturday night for sure.
Okay. For the games we're going to pick, we're going to start in the SEC. This was. Maybe this would have been a bigger deal a year ago, but still a decent matchup. We have Alabama visiting Mississippi State. Bama is number 2. Mississippi State is 17. Alabama is an 8-point favorite, and this is we're kind of starting the Dak Prescott farewell tour here, which I think is actually kind of a cool thing. What do you think about this one?
If it's possible for a top 25 team to fly under the radar, the definition would be Mississippi State. This is a team that has some pretty okay wins. They've won 4 in a row. 2 losses against 2 pretty good teams, LSU and Texas A&M. So and it's interesting. You go back to the beginning of the year, Mississippi State was predicted to finish last in the SEC West, and so they've played this entire season with a chip on it. And now here they are, right in the thick of things. They could play spoiler for Alabama, and the whole SEC West just kind of gets turned upside down. Now, do I think it's going to happen? Not really. And the reason why I say that is because we learned last week that Alabama, if you only have one real true offensive threat, Alabama knows how to shut that down, i.e. Leonard Fournette. I mean, that's got to be a career low for him, for sure. Mississippi State is kind of Dak Prescott and a cast of characters, really. And I mean, Prescott's putting up ridiculous numbers this year. He's having a great season. But again, that's kind of a one-facet offense that I don't think Alabama is really going to struggle with. Alabama handles the big-time games without any, they've proven time and time again they can handle this type of big-time game. I think Alabama wins this one, but I think it's going to be a little bit more competitive than people are expecting early on in the game. I think Dak Prescott's going to use his arm and keep them in, but I think Alabama wins this one.
Okay. I found a cool thing as I was looking into this. Dak Prescott just went over accounting for 100 touchdowns in his college career, and in the SEC there are that's pretty rare company, including Tim Tebow, Danny Werfel, some guy named Peyton Manning. probably remember him from a while.
Haven't heard of him at all.
Yeah, and it's just sort of vague recollections. So this is not somebody to take lightly. And I think if you're going to be a one-dimensional offense against Alabama, you would rather be a passing offense, because if there is a weakness, it would be Alabama secondary. I use the word weakness kind of lightly, but still, I don't think that's going to be enough for a Mississippi State to beat Alabama. But this could be a pretty entertaining game, and could be a little bit tighter than you think. Maybe Mississippi State is a case kind of hanging on at the end. We'll see what happens, but I think Alabama's the right pick there. We mentioned the Memphis-Houston game in terms of offense. The over/under for Oregon at Stanford on Saturday is 70 points. I'm tempted to take the over there, actually. Stanford, of course, number 7. They are a 10-point favorite in this one. What do you think?
It depends which Oregon team shows up.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we've seen two different versions of this Oregon team. We saw an Oregon team that has looked fairly impressive in a couple of games this season, but we've also seen an Oregon team that lost to Washington State. And so now they're getting Vernon Adams back this week, which is good. But Stanford's only loss on the year was that week 1 kind of head scratcher now against Northwestern. It was almost like they just weren't quite ready to start the season, or the road trip was funny, and that was an early start. I remember that game was a noon kick, so
yes.
You've got a Pac-12 team traveling to Northwestern with an early kick. Maybe that had something to do with it, or maybe they just weren't quite ready. I don't know. People seem to be handing Stanford the Pac-12 title. Like it's just kind of like a foregone conclusion that this is Stanford's to lose. You got to watch this Oregon team. I really think this could potentially. I mean, if Stanford's kind of lackadaisical and believing what everybody's saying right now, if they let up a little bit, I mean, Oregon is Oregon, and I don't think they want to leave the door open. I think on paper, Stanford is absolutely the better team. I think they should be they should be able to finish out the Pac-12 season. But gosh, you got to be careful with Oregon. But I think Stanford finds a way to win, but it's going to be an interesting game, and no defense.
not much defense. No, it's the thing that I noted. Both teams are scoring in the neighborhood of 40 points a game. Oregon's actually averaging just over 40, and Stanford's actually just under. The thing that I noticed as I'm checking out these statistics is that Oregon is also giving up almost 40 points a game on average, and that's going to make this tough because Stanford is not doing that. Stanford does manage to play some pretty good defense. Not great, but I think that could be the difference as you're looking at this game. Entertaining, certainly. It would be a fun one to watch, but Stanford, at least for right now, is going to hold on to its grip on the Pac-12. We spent a little time talking about the Big 12 and what happens the rest of the season starting this week. It's at 8 o'clock. Number 12 Oklahoma at number 6 Baylor. Baylor is a 2.5-point favorite. Wow, this is when we start to figure out what's going on in that conference.
Yeah, talk about two teams we really don't know a lot about.
Yeah,
and it's crazy to say that in this, in the middle of November. These are two teams that we really don't know a lot about. What do we know about Baylor? They score a lot of points. They're looking at their final scores, they're averaging 50 to 60 points a game. But again, against pretty inferior opponents, we've not seen them yet up against. And Baylor's schedule is completely backloaded. This is the first of 3 games in a row where they're going to play ranked opponents. What makes me a little bit uneasy about Oklahoma in this game, even though I think they've probably got the better resume at this point, is the way Oklahoma, we've seen them in a big time game against Texas, and we saw how poorly that went for them. And Oklahoma is clearly the better team between those two. And that makes me, it's been about a month since the Red River rivalry, but I mean, fool me once, right? And that really makes me nervous, because if this is a team that's still trying to kind of gel a little bit, They've had some offensive questions. They've had some defensive questions, and they're starting to kind of pull themselves together a little bit. But, here we are, another big-time stage. Game day is going to be there. On the road, I think, yeah, exactly. Yeah, flip a coin. I'm going to lean Baylor in this one because they're playing at home and because I think they're playing with something to prove. I think they're coming into this game believing that they're not getting respect from the playoff committee, which it's hard to argue against that because they haven't played anybody. I think Baylor will face some challenges still remaining in this season, i.e. Oklahoma State.
Right.
But against Oklahoma, I think they're going to come in so hyped for this game playing at home. I think they're going to find a way to win this game this week. But then I would watch them the next couple of weeks as they play Oklahoma State and TCU and some of the other top-tier Big 12 teams that they might get tripped up by. But I think this week, Baylor's playing with a chip on their shoulder, and it's going to get the win this week against Oklahoma.
Baylor, well, first off, Baylor had better enjoyed the home game because they have, after this week, they have both Oklahoma State and TCU on the road. And I know this is the first time that Texas Christian has been mentioned in this week's show. And to write them off, it's in terms of causing problems for their conference opponents, is kind of problematic. So I guess I was really tempted to go with Oklahoma here, and I can't get past the loss to Texas because that's there are iffy losses but that Texas team is not good, there's something to say about it being a rivalry, but that is a bad loss. And Oklahoma is really playing well, and I would not be surprised to see them beat Baylor. But I think in what could be a shootout, Baylor's going to win this one, and then we'll find out about the Bears over the next 2 weeks. That's it.
Yeah. It's weird because we're talking about all these big games, but when you look at the schedule this week, there's only 3 top 25 matchups, and we talked about all 3 of them. And one of them is Houston, Memphis. So there's a lot of kind of top teams that just need to, survive in advance. We talk about that during basketball season. Yeah. This is survive in advance week for a lot of teams. And then I think the next 2 weeks, I think, are going to get after this are going to be incredibly interesting because your Buckeyes will face a couple of really big tests back to back. Big 12 is going to have some big tests back to back. Right. So yeah, it's the next 2 weeks are really going to be fun. This week's kind of the prep, and everybody do what they're supposed to do week.
If you guys need to take a breath, this is the weekend to do it because after this week, it gets really, really serious.
Which
Carla,
means,
yes,
I would say, which means that this week all heck's going to break loose because that's always what happens.
Probably. I have to work on Saturday night, so I'll be taking a nap on Saturday afternoon. I'm going to wake up and just everything's going to be a mess. That is going to happen. That is hard. Carla, thank you once again.
Yep. Thank you as always.
Thank you guys for watching. We will talk to you next week.